Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Courtney Shavante back here with the second part of my Zodiac mini tray tutorial. So today what we're going to be working on, we're going to be doing the water signs for you guys. So Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio, I hope you're ready. What we're going to do starting out is we're going to be adding about 20 milliliters of resin to to two of the tray molds because two of them are going to have a pearl trim inserted inside. Now these pearl trims that I find in random craft stores, I get a lot of questions asking where they're from. They're from random different places. So I suggest, looking up locally, seeing what's next to you. I'm just placing those in there inside the rim, inside that resin and everything, making sure it's nice and secure. I use my craft stick to make sure that it's pushed down nicely and everything. I do want it to be even and bubble free, so I'm trying to ensure that everything is in place and good to go. I noticed that I need to put the knot of the chain more so towards the top just to make sure that it sit more flatly and force and everything. What I'm doing here is I'm taking about 30 milliliters of resin and I'm adding in my gold glitter mix. This is something I pre-mixed off camera, just like a bunch of random different gold glitters. I stirred that up very well, and what I'm going to do is get it nice and thin, and then I'm going to pour it into the rim of this last tray mold. And once I do that, I'm just going to be making sure that it's nice and even in there, and then from there this is going to be having a chance to set. I'm going to, make sure I fill in the other ones, like with a little bit of leftover resin, making sure there's no gaps or anything, because you want all these layers to be as even as you can get them. That's the key here. Alright, so after that has a chance to cure, you're going to prepare about 100 milliliters of resin, and you're going to be splitting that up pretty evenly between these three trays here. First, you're going to be putting a little bit in the center, and you're going to take your foil and you're going to press it face down right there in the middle. You want to press firmly so that we get as close towards the mold as possible, so that way it doesn't move and there's less shifting and everything when you're placing everything else. From here, you can go ahead and add a little bit more resin and everything as you go. I try to, just kind of add in spurts so that way I can make sure that I put my inserts and my flowers and my foils and everything as close to the mold surface as possible. You see me adding my flowers one by one face down and pressing down with a popsicle stick. These are some blue nigella flowers. That's what these are called if you're trying to search for a particular kind. I do try to link the flowers down below, but I do have a lot of different flower packs that I use, and I can't always remember exactly which one it comes from, but I will try to update if I can find this particular one. And so yes, you see me adding a little bit more resin as I go as well. I'm making sure there's some resin on the backs of the flowers because that helps to push it down and seal it down as well. So that way when we're adding our layers later, you want to make sure that this coat that you have on here is nice and even. That is key here. You do not want it, your layers to kind of mend into each other, because it doesn't look so great in the finished product when you pull it. Trust me, I know. Alright, so I'm just using that stir stick to get everything adjusted, and then I'm doing the same thing that I did on the first one as far as getting that bit of resin, heating it up with that heat gun and thinning it out in the middle. Then I place my foil down firmly, face down. I use that popsicle stick. Make sure I kind of push out that excess resin from underneath the foil, and then I add more resin on top. Use my heat gun. I'm going to create that nice even coat, that nice even layer. Going to repeat that on this third tray as well. You know, like I said before, that foil. Now, I know I use this heat gun a lot. It's one of my favorite tools as far as working with resin. It just helps with so many different things as far as popping bubbles and just helping to adjust the resin and push colors around when you're doing certain techniques. I strongly recommend them. They're easily under $15 on Amazon. Even if you don't get the particular one I recommend, you can definitely find one in a color that you like as well. So I'm just making sure that these coats are nice and even with this resin on these two, because I'm going to be adding some glitters and some other things to these two as well. And so you see me using that popsicle stick to push that around. I'm taking this pre-made glitter mix after I make sure that foil is, you know, adjusted where I need it. Excuse me. I am going to take that glitter and spoon it in a circle around the main parts of that foil. You see how I'm going around in a circle pattern. I don't really want it on the middle part of it too much, so I'm being very particular about where I am placing this glitter. Right. Now your flowers and stuff will shift a bit as that resin begins to cure, especially when it's in that runny state. So be on the lookout for that and be ready to push them around. Now on this third tray, I am using two different blue colors, I believe, and I'm also using a white sinking alcohol ink. This is what I'm going, oh, I'm sorry, three different blues actually. So I'm going to just add a few dots towards the center and create this cute little cell pattern and everything. And then from there, I'm going to be taking my toothpick and I'm just going to swirl that around a bit. You don't want to completely cover up the clear parts. You want some of that clear to seep through, because we're going to be adding another layer later. As you can see, this mold isn't anywhere near full. It's maybe halfway at this point, so we still got a bit of ways to go. So just make sure you drag it around, you know, get those colors to move around and shift around how you like. Get something really cute and dramatic going on. And keep in mind that the alcohol ink does have a bit of a mind of its own, so it is going to shift around a bit. You're also going to drag those glitters out a bit as well, so that way it's not like so centered in that ring. It's going to disperse a bit as if it's sort of like an ombre glitter thing going on. Alright, so now we're just going to let that cure. Alright, so after that has a chance to cure, we're going to prep 300 milliliters of resin. We're going to create a nice little even thin layer of clear resin on two of those trays, the two that don't have the alcohol ink. We're going to put that on there, and we're also going to mix up our colors. I did maybe about 40 to 50 milliliters of these two different blue shades, and I got that mixed up nicely and everything. And then I'm going to be doing a remaining a larger cup that has about, I'd say probably about 120 milliliters to 130 milliliters of resin in there, and we're going to create a nice white color. So we're going to mix up a white in there using our mica powder. I am scraping at that cup because I don't like to waste any resin. This resin does get pretty expensive, so I don't like to waste any at all. Now, of course, as you know, I like to kind of mix my pigments and everything. So not only am I going to be using mica powders, I'm actually going to be including some alcohol inks into this as well. So you see me adding in this opaque white alcohol ink into this white one. and I'm getting that stirred up nicely so that way it's like this pearly milky white color that still has some translucency to it and everything, but it's still very white and opaque at the same time. I'm adding some regular blue alcohol inks to the blue colors that I mixed up, and I'm going to make sure that's stirred up nicely as well. You want it to be dispersed throughout the resin, and you don't want it just sitting on top because that alcohol ink will sit on top, so make sure you're moving that stir stick from the top of the cup to the bottom. Section off a bit of that white. I sectioned off probably about 50 milliliters of that white resin, and then I took my heat gun to thin out the clear resin that I put on that flower and that glitter tray from earlier, because we are going to be adding and dropping into that, and it's just going to make it easier for our colors to disperse. So we're going to start off with that white, and we're just going to do a zigzag pattern using that white color onto that first tray, and they're going to follow up with those blue colors. And yeah, we're just going to follow it in the same pattern, so it's a nice zigzag, and you see how the different colors blend. Then we're going to take that blue and that white, and we're going to do some nice rings over here on that second tray that we poured the clear resin into. As you can see, I'm creating some nice circles and everything, and I'm going back. Don't be afraid to go back and add more if you need to. You just want to make sure that you get those colors started, because once it touches the bottom of that tray, that's pretty much where that color is going to land. Now in that white resin, we're going to be adding some more of that same glitter mix that we had used earlier on the trays from the previous step into that white resin. We're going to mix that up. I also added in the remaining of that white resin because I didn't use it all in the other two trays, so there's about 15 milliliters left over that I added in. Pour that on over into that third tray, and that's going to create a nice even coat behind that alcohol ink layer, and it's going to poke through on those clear parts, and also on some of that blue. That glitter is going to show through, and it's going to create a nice pretty effect when this is all complete. Don't waste any of your resin. Go through and add a little bit more to the previous trays that you had before if you do have any colors remaining inside those tiny blue cups. No resin left behind. Alright, from here we are going to be taking a toothpick, and we are just going to kind of pull and create a flower pattern in that second tray. We're going to first drag from the center, and then we're going to drag from the outwards to the center. On that second one, we just kind of follow that same zigzag pattern, and move the toothpick around in there, and I'm also spraying with the alcohol to make sure we burst those bubbles, and we're going to go ahead and let that set after we blow the bubbles using the heat gun from that third tray as well. Got a little tongue tied there, excuse me. Alright, so on here we're going to prep about 75 milliliters of resin, because you want to add about 25 milliliters to each tray here. That's going to create a nice even base coat and everything, and go ahead and fill these molds up. Now you're not going to see me actually do it on the third tray here because I did run out of resin. I only prepared 50 for this video, so I had to come back and I did it off camera for that third one. But I basically did the same thing. I take my stir stick and I just make sure that resin's pushed around towards the edges using that heat gun as well. We let that cure, and now we are at the point where we are ready to go ahead and demold these babies. So we're just going to pull at the edges here, and we're going to release these from the molds. And you want to make sure that you pull at the edges and wait for it to release before you try to pull all the way from the bottom. And be careful of the edges because they can be pretty sharp. Pull off any excess drippings that you have on there. and you can use your nail. If you don't have a nail, you can find some type of tool. I don't know what you use because I just always use my nails. But from there, you'll just take your sanding block and you'll go over the edges of each of these, and you'll also spray with alcohol as you go, and then that'll just help dull down that sharp edge on the bottom so no one cuts themselves or anything like that handling your work. You want to make sure that these are safe for anyone to use for whatever they're using it for. Alright, so make sure they are all nice and clean. You're using 99.9% alcohol spray inside these bottles. Spray them down really well and wipe. Alright, so this is our finished product right here. This right here is the Pisces tray. I love how those colors blend in the background behind those flowers like it's actually water and everything. So that's very, very beautiful to me. Next, we have up right here our Scorpio tray. This is the one with the alcohol ink. As you can see, those glitters poke through like I was telling you before. Look at how that chain sits beautifully. It just looks really nice. And this one right here is our Cancer tray. Yes, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. You can see that nice flower pattern in the background, but the Cancer and the glitter really just kind of takes control of the tray. I love how these turned out. If you do love how this turned out as well, please make sure you hit that like button for me and also leave a comment. If you happen to try to recreate any of these trays or use any of these methods, be sure to tag me on Instagram and make sure you follow my Instagram as well. I'm on Instagram at boujie.hippie.xcs. I'll have everything linked for you down below. I am on Facebook as well. I appreciate all you guys' comments and everything and all the encouragement and support. I look forward to connecting with you a little bit more. Thank you guys again for watching, and make sure you check out my other videos. You guys have a great one. Bye now.